The taxi's headlights cut through the pre-dawn darkness of Misty Pines as I counted out crumpled 20s for the driver. 10 months of deployment checks, and this was what remained after Army pay and family allotments. The familiar smell of upstate New York autumn hit me as I stepped onto the cracked sidewalk. Wet leaves, wood smoke, and the faint industrial tang from the paper mill across town. My duffel bag hit the ground with a thud that seemed too loud for 2:17 a.m. The house looked different, smaller somehow. The porch light was off, which struck me as odd since Seren always left it on when I was away. Old habits from her father's military service, she used to say. I approached the front door and slid my key into the lock. It didn't turn. "What the hell?" I muttered, jiggling the key. The metal felt foreign in my hand, like it belonged to someone else's life. I tried again, applying more pressure. Nothing. That's when I heard the laughter from inside. Not just any laughter. Serene's laugh, the one she reserved for cocktail parties and church fundraisers, bright and performative. But underneath it, weaving through like smoke, was another sound that made my stomach clench. Zane's laugh, my half-brother's distinctive wheeze chuckle, the same one that had grated on my nerves since we were kids. What was he doing here at 2 a.m? I pressed my ear to the door, feeling like a fool but unable to stop myself. Their voices were muffled, but I caught fragments. Can't believe he's actually coming back. Won't be a problem much longer. Maya doesn't even ask about him anymore. Maya, my daughter. The thought of her sleeping upstairs while whatever this was played out below made my jaw clench. I walked around to the back of the house, muscle memory guiding me to the spare key hidden under the ceramic frog by Seren's herb garden. The frog was gone. In its place was a small security camera, its red light blinking like an accusation. The kitchen window gave me a partial view of the living room. Seren sat on our couch, the one we'd bought together 3 years ago after my last deployment bonus came through. She wore the black silk robe I'd given her for Christmas, the one she claimed was too fancy for every day. Her blonde hair was loose around her shoulders, and she was holding a wine glass. Zane sat beside her, too close. His hand rested on her knee. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, watching my wife and my brother in my living room, drinking my wine, touching each other in ways that made everything crystal clear. The deployment had been hard. 10 months of sand, heat, and counting days until I could come home to my family. Apparently my family had found other arrangements. I walked back to the front door and knocked. Firm, steady knocks that echoed in the quiet neighborhood. The voices inside stopped abruptly. Footsteps approached the door. "Who is it?" Serene's voice, suddenly sharp and nervous. "It's Darren. Open the door, Seren." Silence. Then whispered conversation I couldn't make out. "Darren?" She sounded surprised, like she hadn't known I was coming home. Like the emails and calls planning my return had never happened. "What are you doing here?" "I live here. Open the door." I can't do that." "Why not?" "You're scaring me. You sound angry." I wasn't angry, not yet. I was tired, confused, and standing on my own front porch like a stranger. But I kept my voice level. "Seren, I just got back from deployment. I'm tired. Please open the door. I think you should leave." That's when I heard Zane's voice, closer to the door now. "Maybe you should call someone, Seren. He sounds unstable." Unstable. 10 months of serving my country, and my brother was calling me unstable for wanting to enter my own home. "I'm going to sit on the porch," I called through the door. "I'm not leaving." I eased myself onto the wooden steps and took out my phone. The battery was nearly drained, but there was enough power for one important call. Not to a lawyer or a friend, to Mrs. Pringle next door. She was 73, rarely slept, and had a clear view of our driveway from her kitchen window. "Mrs. Pringle, it's Darren Halloway. I'm sorry to wake you." "Yes, I just got back." "No, I can't get in." "Could you do me a favor? Could you look out your window and tell me if there's a car in my driveway?" Her voice crackled through the phone. "Oh, honey, that blue Honda's been there most nights for weeks. I wondered when you'd be getting home." "Thank you, Mrs. Pringle. Could you note the time for me? 2:34 a.m. on October 15th. "Of course, dear. Are you all right?" "I will be." I ended the call just as police headlights swept across the front yard. 2 officers emerged from the patrol car, hands resting casually on their duty belts. The taller one I recognized, Ray Voss, a guy I'd gone to high school with before joining the Army. "Darren?" Ray approached cautiously. We got a call about a domestic disturbance." "Hey, Ray." I stood slowly, keeping my hands visible. No disturbance here. Just a guy trying to get into his own house. The front door opened, and Seren stepped out. She'd thrown on jeans and a sweater over the robe, but her hair was still mussed. Zane appeared behind her, looking rumpled and guilty. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," Seren said, her voice trembling. "He's been threatening me. I'm afraid of what he might do." Ray looked between us. "Darren, is that true?" "I haven't threatened anyone. I knocked on my own door and asked to come inside." "He's been acting erratic," Zane added. "Seren called me because she was scared." I turned to Ray, keeping my voice calm and professional. "I'd like to request that you note the time of this call and check my travel status. I just returned from a 10-month deployment with the 82nd Airborne. I have documentation." Ray's partner, a younger officer I didn't recognize, stepped forward. "Sir, we need you to step back from the residence." "I understand." I moved to the sidewalk. "Ray, I'm going to reach into my bag for my military ID and travel orders. Is that okay?" Ray nodded. I pulled out the folder I'd kept organized throughout the journey home: orders, travel vouchers, and the letter from my commanding officer confirming my deployment dates and return schedule. "I left Fort Bragg at 0800 yesterday morning," I said, handing Ray the papers. "Flew into Syracuse at 1930 hours. Took a taxi from the airport. Mrs. Pringle next door can confirm the timeline." Ray examined the documents while his partner spoke quietly with Seren and Zane. I caught fragments of their conversation, words like unstable and threatening behavior and history of anger issues. History of anger issues. That was rich, coming from Zane, who'd been kicked out of 3 bars in town for starting fights. "Darren," Ray said, returning my papers, "your wife is saying you made threats. Did you?" "I did not. I asked her to open the door. When she refused, I said I would wait on the porch. That's when she called you." "He was pounding on the door," Seren interjected. "Shouting. I was terrified." I looked at Ray steadily. "I'd like to request body cam footage of this interaction, and I'd like to make a phone call." "Who are you calling?" "Base legal office. I want my arrival documented and my conduct tonight witnessed by a neutral party." Ray studied me for a long moment. We'd played football together senior year. He knew I wasn't the type to lose my temper without cause. "Okay, you can make your call." Yeah, I dialed the duty officer at Fort Bragg and explained the situation in military terms: arrival time, current status, request for documentation. The conversation was brief and professional, but loud enough for the officers to hear. When I hung up, Ray's expression had shifted. "Darren, do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" "I'd prefer to stay in my own home, but apparently that's not an option." "We can't force entry if she doesn't want you inside." "I understand. Can you note in your report that I'm requesting documentation of this incident, including the time, the parties present, and the fact that I've been cooperative?" "Sure." I shouldered my duffel bag and looked at Seren. She avoided my eyes, but Zane stared at me with something like triumph. My brother had always been jealous of my military service, my marriage, my stability. Now he had what he wanted. "I'll be at the Edgewater gym," I told Ray. "Coach Mallory lets me crash there sometimes. You know where to find me." As I walked away, I heard Seren's voice behind me, still playing the victim for the officers. But I also heard something else. Ray asking pointed questions about the timeline, about Zane's presence, about why she'd changed the locks without informing her deployed husband. The walk to Edgewater took 20 minutes through empty streets lined with maple trees dropping their leaves like confetti. The gym sat in a converted warehouse near the old textile district, its neon sign flickering against the brick facade. I had my own key, a privilege earned through 3 years of helping Coach Mallory with repairs and maintenance. Inside, the familiar smell of sweat, rubber mats, and industrial disinfectant wrapped around me like a blanket. I made my way to the small office behind the main floor where Coach kept a couch for fighters who needed a place to crash. Before settling in, I pulled out my phone and opened the app for our home security system. Seren thought I'd forgotten about the cameras I'd installed before deployment, small wireless units hidden in the living room, kitchen, and front hallway. The app showed 37 motion-triggered recordings from the past month. I selected the most recent one, from 2 hours ago. The timestamp read 12:23 a.m. On the small screen, I watched Zane enter through the front door using his own key. Seren met him in the hallway, and they embraced in a way that left no doubt about their relationship. I scrolled back through the recordings. September 15th, Zane's car in the driveway overnight. September 22nd, the two of them on my couch sharing a bottle of wine. October 1st, Zane leaving the house at 6 a.m. while Maya's school bus pulled up outside. Maya had seen him. My 17-year-old daughter had watched her uncle sneak out of her mother's bedroom while her father served overseas. I set the phone aside and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I would start the process of reclaiming my life. Tonight, I just needed to process the fact that the family I'd spent 10 months missing had been a lie. But as I drifted toward sleep on Coach Mallory's lumpy couch, one thought crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity. Seren had made a tactical error by calling the police. She'd created an official record of this night, complete with witnesses, documentation, and my perfectly reasonable behavior under pressure. She just handed me the first piece of evidence I'd need to destroy her. Coach Mallory found me at 5 a.m., sitting on the gym floor with my laptop balanced on my knees, downloading security footage to a secure drive. Darren, what the hell are you doing here? Brick Mallory was 62, built like a refrigerator, and had been running Edgewater Gym since before I was born. He'd trained half the tough guys in Misty Pines, including me during my angry teenage years. Nothing surprised him anymore, but finding me camped out in his office came close. Long story, Coach. Mind if I grab a shower and explain over coffee? 20 minutes later, I sat across from him at the small table in his office, clean but wearing yesterday's clothes. I laid out the situation in simple terms: deployment, homecoming, locked doors, police, and the security footage that painted a very different picture than Seren's victim narrative. Coach listened without interrupting, occasionally grunting or shaking his head. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and studied me. So what's your play? Honestly, I don't know yet. Part of me wants to post this footage online and watch her world burn. But that's the angry part talking. And the smart part? The smart part says to document everything, stay legal, and let her keep making mistakes. Coach nodded approvingly. Smart part's right. Angry gets you in trouble. Smart gets you results. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Ray Voss. Can you come to the station this morning? Need to ask some follow-up questions? I showed Coach the message. He frowned. That normal? Depends on what Seren told them after I left. At 9 a.m., I walked into the Misty Pines Police Department in my dress uniform. Ray met me in the lobby, clearly uneasy. He said I wasn't under arrest, just a routine follow-up about the incident at my house. In a small conference room, he read Serene's claims that I'd sent threatening messages during deployment and had a history of aggressive behavior. I handed him a folder with every email, text, and video call we'd exchanged. Mundane, polite, and non-threatening. Ray admitted they looked normal. He mentioned alleged anger issues, bar fights, road rage, neighbor conflicts. I reminded him he'd known me since high school and asked for any actual police reports. There were none. Then I asked if they'd checked the blue Honda in my driveway. Ray hadn't. I told him it belonged to Zane Marinor, my half-brother, and that my neighbor had seen it parked there most nights while I was deployed. Ray finally understood what was really going on. I advised him to stick to facts in his report. If this turned into my word against Seren's, I had evidence. Then I left. At the courthouse, I filed a formal complaint for defamation and filing a false police report. I documented everything: the false threats, the lockout, the police call, my deployment records, and my neighbor's statement about Zane's car. By noon, I stopped at a bar to think. That's when Maya called. Seren had told her I'd threatened her and was breaking down. I calmly told my daughter the truth. I'd asked to be let inside and waited for police. Maya hesitated, then admitted Zane had been around constantly, even overnight. She asked if we were getting divorced. I didn't know how to answer, only that my love for her wouldn't change. After the call, I realized the life I'd built was gone, but so was the confusion. The truth hurt, but it was freeing. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Tia Garvin, Seren's closest friend, asking to meet at a coffee shop at 3 p.m. That would be interesting. I arrived at Grounded Coffee 10 minutes early and chose a table near the back where we could talk without being overheard. Tia walked in precisely at 3 p.m., scanning the room until she spotted me. She approached with the confident stride of someone accustomed to controlling conversations. Darren! She sat down without offering a greeting or handshake. Tia, thanks for reaching out. She studied me for a moment, probably trying to assess my mental state. Tia worked in HR for a regional insurance company and prided herself on reading people. Serene's worried about you, she began. She thinks you might do something rash. Like what? Like try to hurt her. Or Zane. She says you've been unstable since you got back. I leaned back in my chair. Tia, I got back less than 24 hours ago. In that time, I've been locked out of my house, had the police called on me, and discovered my wife is having an affair with my brother. Under the circumstances, I think I'm handling things pretty well. She's not having an affair. I have video footage that says otherwise. That stopped her cold. Tia's confidence flickered for just a moment before she regrouped. Whatever you think you saw. I saw my brother entering my house with his own key at 12:23 a.m. I saw him and my wife embracing in a way that left no doubt about their relationship. I saw him leaving at 6 a.m. while my daughter waited for the school bus. Tia's jaw tightened. You were spying on your own family? I installed security cameras before deployment. Standard practice for military families. Seren knew about them. She forgot to disable them, Tia muttered, then caught herself. Excuse me? Nothing. Look, Darren, whatever's happening between Seren and Zane, you need to handle this like an adult. Don't make it ugly. I studied Tia's face, noting the way she avoided eye contact, the tension in her shoulders. Something was off about this conversation. Why are you really here, Tia? I told you, Seren's concerned. Seren could have called me herself, or texted, or shown up in person. Instead, she sent her friend to... What? Threaten me? Negotiate terms? Tia stood abruptly. Just don't do anything you'll regret, Darren. Some things can't be undone. She left without another word, but her parting comment echoed in my mind. It sounded less like advice and more like a warning. I spent the rest of the afternoon at the gym, working through my confusion and anger on the heavy bag. Each punch helped clarify my thinking, stripped away the emotional noise until only the essential facts remained. Fact 1. My marriage was over. Whether through divorce or annulment, I would not be reconciling with someone who'd betrayed me so completely. Fact 2. Seren and Zane had underestimated me. They expected me to either rage ineffectively or slink away in shame. They weren't prepared for methodical, documented retaliation. Fact 3. I had advantages they didn't know about. The security footage was just the beginning. As the sun set over Misty Pines, I made a decision that would have consequences for everyone involved. I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. I wasn't going to quietly accept betrayal and move on with my life. I was going to make them pay for every lie, every moment of humiliation, every assumption that I was too stupid or too weak to fight back. And I was going to enjoy every minute of it. The next morning, I drove to Maya's school during her lunch period. Misty Pines High sat on a hill overlooking the downtown area, a brick building that had educated 3 generations of local families. I'd graduated from these same halls 22 years ago, back when the future seemed simple and predictable. Maya met me in the parking lot, looking older than her 17 years. The past day had aged her, carved new lines of worry around her eyes. Mom says I shouldn't talk to you without her present, she said as she slid into my truck, but you're here anyway. I'm not stupid, Dad. I know what's going on. We drove to Murphy's Diner on the outskirts of town, a place where we could talk without running into Seren's network of friends and allies. Maya ordered a chocolate milkshake and picked at a basket of fries while I nursed black coffee. How long have you known? I asked. About Mom and Uncle Zane? Maybe 2 months. I came home early from Jessica's house one night and saw his car in the driveway. When I went inside, they were on the couch together. What did you do? I went straight to my room and pretended I didn't see anything. But after that, I started noticing things. The way they looked at each other. How he'd touch her arm when he thought no one was watching. How she'd get all dressed up on nights when he came over. Maya's voice was matter of fact, but I could see the hurt underneath. She'd been carrying this secret for weeks, protecting her mother while watching her father serve overseas, oblivious to the betrayal waiting at home. I'm sorry you had to deal with that alone. Are you going to divorce her? Probably. I can't see how we come back from this. Maya nodded like she'd expected that answer. What about me? Where will I live? That's up to you, sweetheart. You're old enough to choose. But wherever you end up, I'll make sure you're taken care of. Mom's been different lately. Angry all the time, like everything's your fault even though you weren't here. She keeps saying you don't appreciate her, that you take her for granted. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I thought about Seren's emails during deployment. Short, business-like messages about bills and Maya's school activities. No warmth, no expressions of missing me or looking forward to my return. I'd attributed it to stress, but now I understood. She'd been pulling away, building a case for why our marriage deserved to fail. Maya, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Has your mother or Uncle Zane ever said anything about me being violent or threatening? No, never. Mom complains about you sometimes, but she's never said you scared her or anything like that. If anyone asks you about that, police, lawyers, school counselors, I want you to tell the truth. Don't lie to protect anyone, including me. I won't lie, Dad, but I also won't let them make you into the bad guy when you're not. Smart kid. Seren had raised her to be independent and critical thinker, but that same intelligence would work against her if she tried to rewrite history. I dropped Maya back at school and drove to my next appointment, a meeting with Tom Bradley, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. Tom had handled my buddy Mike's divorce 2 years earlier and had a reputation for being thorough, aggressive, and expensive. His office occupied the top floor of a renovated Victorian mansion downtown, all hardwood floors and tall windows. Tom himself was 50-something, gray-haired, and had the predatory smile of someone who enjoyed legal combat. "Darren Halloway," he said, shaking my hand. "Mike Patterson spoke highly of you, said you were someone who planned ahead and followed through." "I try to be?" "Good. That'll make this easier." He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "Tell me everything." I laid out the story chronologically: deployment, return, locked doors, police, security footage, and Seren's escalating lies. Tom took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Do you have the security footage with you?" I handed him a flash drive. 37 recordings over the past month. The timestamps and metadata are intact. Tom plugged the drive into his computer and watched several clips, his expression growing more pleased with each one. "This is excellent evidence of adultery. New York is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery still matters for property division and custody arrangements." He leaned back in his chair. "What are your goals here?" "I want my fair share of assets. I want access to my daughter, and I want Seren to face consequences for the false police report." "Anything else?" I considered the question. What did I really want? Justice, revenge, or just the satisfaction of watching Seren's carefully constructed image crumble? "I want the truth to come out. I want people to know what really happened." Tom smiled. "I can work with that. But I need to warn you, if we go aggressive on this, she'll fight back. Divorce can get ugly fast." "It's already ugly. The question is whether I'm going to be a victim or a participant." "Fair enough. I'll need a retainer of $5,000 to get started." I wrote the check without hesitation. After 10 months of deployment pay with minimal expenses, I had more cash available than Seren realized. "One more thing," Tom said as I stood to leave. "Don't do anything stupid while this plays out. No confrontations, no social media posts, no revenge plots. Let the legal system handle it." "Understood." But as I left his office, I was already planning my next move. Tom could handle the legal aspects, but there were other forms of justice that courtrooms couldn't provide. That evening, I returned to the gym and found Coach Mallory training a group of teenage fighters. I waited until the session ended before approaching him. "Coach, I need a favor." "Name it." "I need you to spread the word that I'm staying here for a while. Let people know I'm available if anyone wants to talk about what really happened the other night." Coach studied my face. "You want the story to get out." "I want the truth to get out. There's a difference." "What about your wife's version?" "Let her keep telling it. The more she talks, the more chances she has to contradict herself." Coach nodded approvingly. "Smart. Truth has a way of rising to the surface if you give it time." Over the next 3 days, a steady stream of visitors stopped by the gym. Some were old friends checking on my welfare. Others were neighbors who'd heard conflicting stories and wanted to judge my mental state for themselves. A few were just curious about the drama unfolding in their quiet neighborhood. I treated each conversation the same way: calm, factual, and focused on verifiable details. I didn't badmouth Seren or Zane. I didn't ask for sympathy or support. I simply told my story and let people draw their own conclusions. The effect was gradual but noticeable. At first, public opinion seemed split between those who believed Seren's victim narrative and those who knew me well enough to doubt it. But as more details emerged, Mrs. Pringle's account of Zane's overnight visits, the timeline discrepancies in Seren's police statement, my cooperative behavior with law enforcement, the tide began to shift. The breakthrough came on Thursday evening. I was closing up the gym when Maya called, her voice excited. "Dad, you need to see Mom's Facebook page. She posted something really stupid." I pulled up Seren's profile on my phone and found a lengthy post titled, "Standing Strong Against Intimidation." In it, she portrayed herself as a brave, single mother protecting her family from an unstable ex-soldier who'd returned from deployment, changed and dangerous. She thanked the community for their support and asked for privacy during this difficult time. The post had dozens of comments, but they weren't the supportive messages Seren had expected. Instead, people were asking pointed questions. Why did you change the locks without telling him? How long has his brother been staying there? Didn't he just get back from serving our country? This doesn't sound like the Darren I know. Someone had even posted Mrs. Pringle's statement about the timeline, contradicting Seren's version of events. I screenshotted the entire thread and forwarded it to Tom Bradley. Social media posts could be used as evidence in divorce proceedings, and Seren had just handed me a gift. But the real revelation came in the comments section, where Tia Garvin had posted a defensive response. Some of you don't know the whole story. Seren has been planning to leave him for months. She deserves to be happy. Planning to leave me for months. While I was deployed, while I was sending her love letters and counting days until I could come home. I stared at that comment for a long time, feeling something cold and hard crystallize in my chest. This wasn't just an affair that had gotten out of hand. This was a calculated campaign to destroy my life while I was overseas and unable to defend myself. They'd planned this, all of it. And if they wanted to play games, I'd show them what a real strategist could do. Friday morning brought the first frost of the season to Misty Pines. I stood in the gym's parking lot at 6 a.m., watching my breath form clouds in the cold air while I planned my day. Phase 1 of my counterattack would begin with a simple phone call. Misty Pines Gazette, this is Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. This is Darren Halloway. I'd like to speak with someone about placing a legal notice. The Gazette was our local newspaper, circulation about 8,000, read by everyone who mattered in town. Legal notices appeared in a small section near the classifieds, usually divorce filings and estate settlements that most people ignored. Most people, but not everyone. What type of legal notice? Jennifer asked. Divorce filing. I need to publish a notice of proceedings against Seren Halloway, citing irreconcilable differences and adultery. Oh. Jennifer's voice perked up with interest. Everyone in town knew about the police call by now. When would you like this to run? Sunday edition. Front page of the legal section. That'll be $50. Perfect. By noon on Sunday, every coffee shop, diner, and church gathering in Misty Pines would be discussing the official confirmation that Seren Halloway was being divorced for adultery. The legal notice wouldn't name Zane specifically, but it wouldn't need to. Everyone already knew who'd been parking in my driveway. My next stop was the bank. I'd been thinking about Seren's financial situation, and something didn't add up. Her law firm salary was decent, but not spectacular, and she'd been spending money freely during my deployment. New clothes, expensive dinners. A weekend trip to New York City she'd claimed was for professional development. I'd like to review our joint account activity for the past 6 months, I told the teller. The printout made for interesting reading. Regular deposits from Seren's law firm, automatic payments for utilities and Maya's school expenses, but also cash withdrawals that didn't match any pattern I recognized. 300 here, 500 there, always from ATMs near Zane's apartment or the Rusty Anchor. She'd been funding their affair with our joint money, paying for hotel rooms and dinners and whatever else they needed to maintain their secret relationship. I made copies of everything and added them to the growing file Tom Bradley was building. In New York, adultery could affect property division, especially when marital funds were used to support the affair. But I wasn't done with the bank yet. I'd also like to remove Seren Halloway's access to our joint accounts, I told the manager. I'm sorry, Mr. Halloway, but both account holders need to be present for that type of change. What if I withdraw all the funds and close the accounts? The manager consulted his computer screen. You have the authority to do that, yes. Then that's what I'd like to do. 20 minutes later, I walked out with cashier's checks totaling $47,000, our combined savings, checking, and money market accounts. Seren would discover the change when her next automatic payment bounced, probably the mortgage payment due Monday. My phone rang as I reached my truck. Maya's number. Dad, Mom's freaking out. She just tried to use her credit card and it was declined. Which credit card? The Visa. She's screaming at the customer service people? I'd forgotten about the credit cards. They were in my name, with Seren as an authorized user. I'd been paying them automatically from our joint account, but with that account closed, tell your mother she needs to call me if she wants to discuss finances. She says she's not talking to you without her lawyer present. That's fine. Her lawyer can call my lawyer. I gave Maya Tom Bradley's contact information and hung up feeling grimly satisfied. Seren had spent months planning my emotional destruction. Now she could experience some financial pressure of her own. The weekend passed quietly. I worked out at the gym, caught up on sleep, and reviewed the security footage again, looking for details I might have missed. Sunday morning, I drove to Murphy's Diner for breakfast and found half the town buzzing about the legal notice in the Gazette. Darren, called out Pete Morrison, who owned the hardware store downtown. Saw the notice in the paper. Sorry to hear about your troubles. Thanks, Pete. Sometimes things don't work out the way you planned. Still, divorcing a man while he's deployed, that takes a special kind of person. I didn't respond, but I didn't need to. Pete's comment captured the general sentiment I was hearing around town. Military families were respected in Misty Pines, and the timing of Seren's betrayal wasn't sitting well with people. Monday morning brought a call from Tom Bradley. Seren's attorney contacted me, he said. Patricia Wells from Syracuse. She's good, but she's also expensive. Your wife must be spending serious money on legal representation. What did she want? Immediate restoration of Seren's access to marital funds. She's claiming financial abuse and attempting to have you held in contempt. Can she do that? She can try, but it won't work. You have every legal right to protect marital assets when adultery is involved. Plus, we have documentation of how Seren was spending that money during your deployment. What's our next move? Discovery. We're going to request financial records, phone records, and any communications between Seren and Zane. We're also going to depose some witnesses. Including Maya? Only if necessary. I'd prefer to keep your daughter out of this, if possible. That afternoon, I was replacing a broken window at the gym when Coach Mallory approached with a troubled expression. Darren, we might have a problem. What kind of problem? Zane was here this morning, asking questions about you. Wanted to know about your mental state, whether you'd been acting erratic, if I thought you might be dangerous. I set down my tools and gave Coach my full attention. What did you tell him? Told him you were the most level-headed guy I knew, and if he had questions about your character, he could ask the dozen other people who'd vouch for you. How did he react? Got angry, started talking about how you'd always been jealous of him, how you'd never accepted him as family, said you were probably planning something crazy. This was interesting. Zane was trying to build a case for my instability, probably at Seren's direction. They were still playing the victim card, still trying to paint me as the dangerous ex-soldier who couldn't handle civilian life. Coach, I need you to document that conversation. Write down everything you remember. What time he came in, what he said, how he acted. You think he's trying to set you up? I think he's trying to create a narrative that justifies what they did. If I'm the crazy one, then Seren's the innocent victim, who had no choice but to seek comfort elsewhere. That's messed up? Yeah, it is. But it's also predictable. That evening, I drove past my old house for the first time since the night I'd been locked out. Serene's car was in the driveway, along with a vehicle I didn't recognize, a silver BMW with Syracuse plates. Probably her lawyer. I didn't stop or slow down, but I made a mental note of the license plate. Tom Bradley might find it useful to know when and where Seren was meeting with her legal counsel. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Patricia Wells, representing Seren Halloway. We need to discuss an immediate resolution to this matter. Can you meet tomorrow at 2 p.m.? I forwarded the message to Tom Bradley and waited for his response. Don't meet with her alone. If she wants to talk, it goes through me. I texted back, all communication needs to go through my attorney, Tom Bradley. He'll be in touch. The response came quickly. Your refusal to communicate directly is concerning. We're prepared to seek emergency court intervention if necessary. Empty threat. I'd been careful to follow all legal protocols, and emergency court intervention required evidence of immediate danger or irreparable harm. Seren's temporary financial inconvenience didn't qualify, but the aggressive tone told me something important. They were feeling pressure. The narrative wasn't going their way, and they were looking for a quick settlement that would allow them to control the story. Too bad. I wasn't interested in quick settlements or controlled stories. I was interested in the truth, and the truth was just getting started. Tuesday brought news that changed everything. I was at the gym when Maya called, her voice tight with excitement and anger. Dad, you're not going to believe this. I found something in Mom's email. Maya, you shouldn't be... She left her laptop open and I saw a message from Uncle Zane. Dad, they've been planning this since before you even left for deployment. My hand tightened on the phone. What do you mean? I mean, they were talking about being together, about how to handle the divorce, about what story they'd tell people. This wasn't some accident that happened while you were gone. They planned it. Can you forward me those emails? Already did. Check your inbox. I hung up and opened my email app with shaking hands. Maya had sent me screenshots of a conversation between Seren and Zane dating back 11 months, 2 weeks before my deployment began. The messages were damning. Discussions of their attraction to each other, plans for how to handle my absence, speculation about divorce settlements and custody arrangements. In one particularly brutal exchange, Seren wrote, Once he's deployed, we'll have 10 months to figure this out. By the time he gets back, it'll be too late for him to stop it. Zane's response. What if he fights the divorce? Seren. He won't. He's too proud to fight for someone who doesn't want him. I stared at that last line for a long time. Too proud to fight for someone who doesn't want him. She'd been right about the pride part. but she'd been wrong about the fighting. I forwarded the screenshots to Tom Bradley with a simple message: game changer. His response came within minutes. Holy hell, this is premeditation. We just went from a simple adultery case to something much bigger. What do you mean? I mean, your wife didn't just cheat on you. She defrauded you. She accepted your financial support, your love, your trust, all while planning to destroy your marriage. This could affect everything: property division, alimony, even criminal charges. Criminal charges. The possibility hadn't occurred to me, but Tom was right. Seren had accepted thousands of dollars in deployment pay and family support while actively plotting against our marriage. That could constitute fraud. But as satisfying as criminal charges might be, I had something else in mind, something more personal. It was time for Misty Pines to see exactly who Seren Halloway really was. The Misty Pines Community Center buzzed with the energy of 200 residents gathered for the monthly town council meeting. These meetings were usually sparsely attended affairs focused on road repairs and snow removal budgets. But tonight was different. Word had spread about the drama surrounding the Halloway family, and people were curious to see if any of the principals would show up. I arrived 15 minutes early and took a seat in the back row, wearing my dress uniform again. If I was going to make a public statement, I wanted everyone to remember that I was a soldier who'd served his country honorably. Seren entered 5 minutes before the meeting started, accompanied by Tia Garvin and 2 other women from her book club. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a conservative navy dress that projected respectability and vulnerability. Her eyes swept the room until they found me, and for a moment our gazes locked across the crowded space. She looked away first. The meeting followed its usual format: budget reports, committee updates, and citizen comments. I waited through 40 minutes of municipal business before the moderator called for public input. Anyone else have comments for the council? I stood up. Yes, I'd like to address the community. A ripple of anticipation went through the crowd. This was what they'd come to see. For the record, I'm Darren Halloway, recently returned from a 10-month deployment with the 82nd Airborne Division. I kept my voice calm and professional. I'm here tonight because there have been some stories circulating about me and my family, and I think the community deserves to hear the facts. Seren shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Tia whispered something in her ear, but Seren shook her head. 2 weeks ago, I returned from deployment to find that my wife had changed the locks on our home. When I asked to be let inside, she called the police and claimed I had threatened her. That was the first lie. I pulled out a folder and held it up. I have documentation of every communication between my wife and me during deployment. Emails, texts, video calls. Not one contains a threat or any aggressive language. I also have sworn statements from neighbors confirming that I behaved appropriately when police arrived. Someone in the crowd whispered, "What about the other guy?" I'm glad you asked. I opened the folder and pulled out a printed photograph. This is security footage from my home, showing my half-brother Zane Marinor entering the house at 12:23 a.m. on the night of my return. My neighbor can confirm his car was parked in my driveway most nights during my deployment. The whispers grew louder. Seren's face had gone pale. But the real revelation came this week, when my daughter discovered email communications between her mother and my brother, communications that prove this affair was planned before I even left for deployment. I held up the printed emails Maya had forwarded. These messages show a deliberate conspiracy to destroy my marriage while I was serving overseas. They discuss how to handle the divorce, what stories to tell the community, and how to make me look like the unstable party. The room erupted in angry murmurs. Someone shouted, "That's disgusting!" Another voice called out, "While he was deployed?" Seren stood up abruptly. "This is harassment. He's trying to humiliate me in public." "No," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "I'm trying to tell the truth, something you haven't done since I got home." "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know that you accepted my deployment pay while planning to leave me. I know that you used our joint funds to finance your affair. I know that you filed a false police report to make me look dangerous." I held up another document. "And I know that you've been spreading lies about my mental state to anyone who'll listen." The moderator tried to restore order, but the crowd was too engaged. This was better than reality TV, and it was happening in their own community. Zane, who'd been sitting near the front, finally stood up. "You're out of line, Darren. You always were a jealous, controlling—" "Sit down, Zane." My voice carried the authority I'd learned in the Army, and he actually took a step back. "You gave up the right to speak when you started sleeping with my wife while I was deployed." The room went silent. Even the moderator stopped trying to restore order. "I served my country for 10 months, I continued, and came home to find that the people I trusted most had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But instead of taking responsibility, they tried to make me the villain. They called me unstable, dangerous, threatening. They wanted this community to believe that I was the problem. I looked directly at Seren. Well, here I am. Do I look unstable to you? Do I sound dangerous? Or do I sound like a man who's tired of being lied about? The silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then someone in the crowd started clapping. Others joined in until half the room was applauding. Seren gathered her purse and headed for the exit, her supporters following. As she passed my row, she leaned in close enough that only I could hear. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "No," I said quietly. "You will." After the meeting, I was surrounded by people offering support, asking questions, and sharing their own opinions about what they'd witnessed. The consensus was clear. I'd been wronged, and Seren had lost whatever sympathy she'd managed to build. But the real victory came the next morning, when Tom Bradley called with news. "Patricia Wells wants to settle," he said. "Full property division in your favor, no alimony, and joint custody of Maya with primary residence determined by her preference." What changed their mind? "Your little performance last night spooked them. Half the town was talking about it by this morning, and none of the talk was favorable to Seren. Her law firm is also asking questions about the adultery evidence and how it might affect her professional standing." "What about the false police report?" "That's trickier. The DA would have to decide whether to press charges, and it's not clear they want to get involved in a domestic dispute." I thought about it for a moment. Criminal charges would be satisfying, but they'd also drag the process out for months and keep Maya in the middle of the conflict. "What do you recommend?" "Take the settlement. You get what you want, she gets out of your life, and Maya doesn't have to testify in court." "What about Zane?" Tom chuckled. "What about him? He's not married to you, so there's no legal action to take. But I hear his boss at the gym isn't too happy about the publicity." That was true. Coach Mallory had mentioned that several parents were asking questions about Zane's character and whether he should be around their kids. The gym's reputation mattered, and Zane was becoming a liability. "I'll take the settlement," I decided, "but I want one addition." "What's that?" "A non-disclosure agreement. If either Seren or Zane talks publicly about me or this situation, they forfeit their settlement terms." "That's reasonable. I'll draw up the papers." The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later in a brief courthouse ceremony. Seren looked miserable throughout the proceedings, signing papers with tight, angry movements. Zane wasn't present. He'd left town 2 days earlier after Coach Mallory decided not to renew his employment contract. Maya chose to live with me, moving into a small apartment above the gym while I looked for a more permanent place. She seemed relieved to have the drama behind her and excited about starting fresh. "Dad," she said one evening as we ate takeout Chinese food, "do you think Mom will be okay?" "Your mother is smart and resourceful. She'll figure things out." "Do you hate her?" I considered the question carefully. "No, I don't hate her. But I don't trust her, and I don't want her in my life anymore. Sometimes that's the best you can do." Maya nodded, like that made sense to her. She was young, but she'd learned some hard lessons about human nature over the past month. 6 months later, I heard through the town gossip network that Seren had moved to Albany and taken a job with a corporate law firm. Zane had apparently followed her there, though whether their relationship survived the stress of public exposure was unclear. I didn't really care. I'd built a new life in Misty Pines, a life based on truth instead of deception, on earned respect instead of manufactured image. Maya was thriving in school, I'd been promoted to head trainer at the gym, and I'd even started dating a nurse from the local hospital who appreciated honesty over drama. The house on Maple Street sold eventually to a young couple with 2 small children who didn't know or care about its history. Sometimes I drove past it on my way to work, but it no longer felt like home. Home was wherever Maya and I were building our future together. The last chapter of the story came a year later, when Maya graduated high school as valedictorian. Seren attended the ceremony but sat in the back, alone. She looked older, more worn down, like someone who'd learned that actions have consequences. After the ceremony, she approached us in the parking lot. "Congratulations, Maya. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Mom." Seren looked at me uncertainly. "Darren, Don't," I said quietly. "We're done. We've been done for a long time." She nodded and walked away without another word. Maya watched her go, then looked up at me. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if she'd just told you the truth from the beginning?" "Sometimes. But then I remember that people who are capable of telling the truth don't usually find themselves in situations that require elaborate lies." That's pretty philosophical for a gym trainer. I learned a lot about human nature during this whole mess. Most of it wasn't pleasant, but it was educational. We walked to my truck in comfortable silence. father and daughter who'd survived a war zone disguised as a family crisis. The future stretched ahead of us, uncertain but honest, built on a foundation of truth instead of convenience. And that, I'd learned, made all the difference.